Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I was actually expecting some more students, but this will take an hour, so I wanted to make sure we have plenty of time to get through everything. And if you ever have any questions, if we're going through things and you have questions, stop me, let me know. You can either type on in the chat room or you can unmute your microphone and ask that way. It's completely whatever you feel most comfortable with. As I said, we have a lot to get through. Basically, the first part is going to be going over course expectations, the setup, basic basic idea of what accounting is and is not, as and then we'll move into more of chapter 2, more of what you would expect, how accounting is worked and things like that. Go through some examples so that I can see how if you're getting a firm grasp on the material or not. So, okay, I haven't quite figured out the poll yet in WebEx. Because normally we're supposed to do it in Canvas conference, but since I'm merging two classes together for the conferences, I haven't quite figured that out yet. I hope to be able to figure it out before week 9 when we have our next conference. So in the chat box, if you could answer accounting sounds A, boring, B, challenging, C, interesting, or D, hard work. It is challenging. I will give you that. But the good part is it's not all about numbers. So that's if you struggle with math, do not worry. It's not all related to math. So, as you've noticed, the course is set up into modules. And so each week has its own module. There are discussions. So that's going to be happening every week except for week 12, which is finals week. Necessary, let's see, assignments. We definitely have assignments. You have 2 major tests besides the final. Those are weeks 3 and week 9. There are reviews already posted within Canvas for the week 3, week 9, and the final. So those are already there, so you could print them out whenever you want to, and you can start writing down page numbers or however you review. There are assignment videos starting now through week 4. I'm working on week 5 to get those up there as soon as possible. So you can work ahead if you need to. Office hours, if you're in section 1, office hours are Wednesdays from 2 to 4. If you are in section 3, it is Tuesdays 2 to 4. If those times don't work, which I know it won't work for most people, you can always text me, email me if you need to get together virtually like this to talk through some problems. Let me know, and we can try to work something out around your schedule. Please note that I do not work on Sundays. That is one day I do not work. So just to give you a heads up, if you have questions on a Sunday and you text me or email me, I will not answer until Monday. Just to give you a heads up. Do we have any first quarter students? I never know how many first quarter students I have in a class. I'm going to assume that it is a yes, but since there is radio silence, let me go into Canvas. So for the rubric, so you know how I am grading you. You will go to the discussion. So this is for week 1. All the discussion rubrics are the same for the entire quarter. So you only have to look once. You could print it off. You could just keep track of it. So you're going to click on the cogwheel up top, and then you're going to click on Show Rubric, and that's going to show you exactly how I am grading your discussion questions. So that is exactly what I am looking for. So are there any questions on how to find the discussion rubrics? You would find it the same way for any class. So that's a helpful tip to know. I'm just going to make sure I have everybody's name written down. After the conference, I will be sending you the passcode needed to complete your conference assignment. Okay. Okay. Homework expectations. This is what I request of you. If you need help, ask. I would rather you ask something you may think is a stupid question than not ask and then you get something wrong or you misunderstand a concept because you didn't ask. With me, there are no stupid questions. Ask any and all questions you may have. I am here to help make sure that you understand accounting. Make sure that you understand what you're doing in this class to be successful, especially if you have to take any further accounting classes. I want to make sure you know what you're doing. See Now. Has anybody looked at See Now yet? Radio silence. So let me pull up See Now. Let me leave student view. So See Now is basically a new program we started this quarter. It gives you the opportunity to look at the textbook information. It gives you sample problems. It basically gives you extra practice in the material that we're working with. So within each week, I have already embedded it into the module. So after the introduction in every week, it starts chapter 2 or chapter 3, and it will take you to Cengage Now. So if you haven't created a Cengage account yet, it will ask you to do that once you click on this box up here where it says load 2.1. So you would click on that and it would take you to Cengage Now. And then it gives you the chapters. So it gives you chapters 1 through 9, which is what we focus on in this course. So for chapter 2, which is what we're doing now, you would click on it and it loads. Let's see. Should load. Okay. Oops. Okay, so for the chapters, it basically, if I can get it to open. Let's see. Let me switch browsers real quick. Basically, See Now gives you hands-on experience before you get to the homework. So you can have access to the chapter, you have access to practice problems, and you can check your answers with the practice problems so you can see whether or not you're understanding a concept. If you don't understand the concept, this will give you more options on how to do certain problems. So for example, if you're struggling with the concept of expenses, it gives you the opportunity to learn more about that. Here we go. So here is the information for chapter 2. And so it gives you the ebook. You scroll over. It gives you the ebook so you can read. Is anyone else having trouble hearing me? Just want to make sure. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Somebody said they were having trouble. So basically, you can go through analysis, sample problems. So this one gives you a video of what is going on. So it gives you can do the transcript so you can read it, or you can watch the video and it walks you through how to do it.
In this exercise,
So
we have the
it's a great source to use. So it should be an easy way to help you get extra help on the material that you're struggling with. So I would definitely take advantage of that. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is for every chapter that we're going to study. Flashcards, crossword puzzle. It basically walks you through the chapter and breaks it down. So it is a great thing to use. Due dates. The due dates are simple. You have the Wednesday night for your initial discussion post. That's standard. If you're not a first quarter student, that hasn't changed. And then you have Sunday nights for due dates for the for the responses for your discussion and for the assignments. If you have to turn in an assignment late, please let me know as soon as possible. I do have a hefty late policy. So the more you make sure you connect with me, the easier it's going to be for me to help you succeed in the class because the late policy again is really stringent. We're going to go over that in a minute. Discussion requirements. If you respond more, it's going to get more interaction with your peers. You're going to be able to build more of a rapport with your peers, which is hard to do in the online environment. So, but the minimum requirement is at least 2 responses to peers. So it's what you have time for and what you feel comfortable with. So you should be able to take care of that. Okay, citations and references. Most of you should have noticed that I am requiring discussion. I'm requiring references. That is because in later classes, you're going to need to know how to cite correctly. So this is a way to get you used to using APA citations. They're not easy. I will give you that. I've struggled with them for a lot of my graduate program, but once you get them down, they're not that hard. There's also a reference cheat sheet that I posted in week 2, I believe, that gives you a list of how to cite your textbook, how to cite websites. So it's a great way to help you cite correctly in your discussions as well as get comfortable with using those. Okay, late policy. It is between 8 days, 1 to 7 days late, it's 10% off. 2, the second option is 8 to 14 days, it's 20% off. After 15 days or above, it's 50% off. Because this class, when you get behind, it is hard to catch up. It's going to be, so I try to encourage students to stay on time as much as possible, but life happens, and I know it happens. So if you get behind, make sure you're talking to me. Make sure you're communicating with me. This goes for any of your instructors. The more you let us know what's going on, the more we can actually help you. So it's kind of like if you go to the doctor and you don't tell them exactly what's wrong with you, they don't know how best to treat you. Same thing in school. If you don't let us know what's going on, we don't know how we can help you. So it's you need to let us know. Attendance requirements to stay enrolled in your classes. You have to be actively engaged in one of your classes. I don't recommend not doing anything in a class because you're running behind. Try to do work on every class each week. I know it's hard. Been there, done that. It's hard. So try to do anything. I do not accept discussions late. I will tell you that right now. You can turn your discussion in late during that week. For example, if you missed the Wednesday night deadline for this week, you can still complete your discussions by Sunday, all 3, and still get credit, except you will lose a point for timeliness. However, you cannot complete week 2 discussions in week 3. You will not get credit for that. I've had several students try already this quarter to do week 1 in week 2. That does not work. Are there any questions on my expectations? Okay. Okay, what accounting is and is not? Okay, Tammy has a question. Okay. So you can either unmute your mic or just type it in the chat room. Which videos are you asking about? The ones the assignment videos? I have double checked all of those. It could be the browser. Okay, it could be your browser. You could not have the right plugins. If they're not working for you within Canvas, I can get you a link that goes directly to my YouTube page. That way that way you have access to the videos for the entire quarter with that one link. Okay, I will get that to you today. That way you have a way to help with the videos. And I'm not sure. I did that. I tried it once and it said it was unavailable for me, but I reloaded my browser and it worked fine. So that I'm not sure why it's telling you that, but I will get you the link. Give me just 1 second. Okay, accounting is essentially a way to keep track of your financial transactions. So for us, let me write myself a note. For us, for our bank account, it is we when we purchase something, we take it out of our cash. So you buy gas, it comes out of your checking account, so you're deducting the cash. So that is in accounting, just deducting it from your checkbook, that is half of a transaction. That is half of what we're doing in accounting. So you're halfway there when you make sure you keep track of your checkbook and register and how much you actually have in your account. Excuse me. It uses different financial statements and documents. For most of the quarter, we're going to be sticking to 3 financial statements, which you should see for in this week's assignment. It is the income statement, the balance sheet, and the statement of owner's equity. There is a specific order that you have to do the financial statements in to get to the right amount, and we will go over that later. It's a way to tell us the financial health of a business. When we do the income statement and the statement of owner's equity, we're going to be able to find out if the company is making or losing money. So that is one thing that's going to help us, especially if you want to start your own business. You need to know whether or not your company is losing money or gaining money. You have to know that. It's usually done by a bookkeeper or an accountant. Some companies hire strictly bookkeepers to take care of the day to day. Usually, bookkeepers focus on one aspect of the business. It's either account receivables, accounts payables, um, cash, expenses. So they just focus on one area. It used to be that companies were not cross training their employees so that employees could only know how to do one part of the job. Now, a lot of companies are cross training their bookkeepers so they can handle any part of the bookkeeping system. That is cheaper than having to hire new employees every time, but it also gives them away in case somebody's out sick and it's month end and they have to have reports done. Somebody knows how to do it. And the main thing that accounting is, it uses the double entry method, which you've seen on your homework for this week. Each transaction is going to affect at least 2 accounts. Sometimes there are 3. If you have to take accounting 2 or 3, it could be 4 or 5 accounts in one transaction. But the most we're dealing with is 3 accounts in each transaction. So it's fairly simple to work with. Accounting is not. It is not your checking account. You have to forget everything you think you know about the terms debit and credit. In accounting, debit essentially means left. Credit means right. It depends. So credit is right on a T account and debit is left on the T account. That's essentially all it means in accounting. Whether you add or subtract depends on which account. And that goes back to the equation. So, which some of you have already mentioned in your discussion posts, which is great. It is not about numbers. Yes, accounting has numbers. Yes, it has math involved. It's not a lot of math. It's mainly addition and subtraction, but it's mostly about whether or not you can take the transaction given and put it into the correct accounts. So if we purchased a car and we put it on account, we would have to be able to know which two accounts we're dealing with. And that's 90% of the battle with accounting, is making sure the accounts are correct. And so the math is mainly addition, subtraction. Weeks 8 and 9, when we work with payroll, there's going to be multiplication. That's about it. And I would highly suggest, even if you can do the math mentally, bring out the calculator and double check yourself. I've done it before when I'm trying to work through the videos and do the problems for students. I don't bring out the calculator because I'm like, oh, it's an easy math. I can do this in my head. And I mess up. And you do not want to spend time trying to find errors, if at all possible. So bring out the calculators. And unfortunately, if you are some of those students that love procrastinating until the end of the week, you cannot get your homework done if you start it at 11:30 Sunday night. You cannot get it done in time. I will tell you that right now. I would not try to get the whole assignment done in one day either, because that is going to take a lot of time. And if you make a mistake, it's going to take a while to find it, and that's going to throw your schedule off. So I would definitely plan ahead as much as possible. Are there any questions on what accounting is and is not? I've taken this class, I've been in your position, so I know it's a little overwhelming right now. I got one no, the rest is radio silence. So I'm going to assume everybody has no questions. So let's go on to the elements. This is definitely stuff that you're going to need to know. If you haven't read the chapter yet, definitely glance through it before you do your homework. The accounting elements. This is what the equation is built on. Assets are things the business already owns. Supplies, vehicles, building, land, food, supplies, copy paper, pens, pencils. Those are all assets. If you're the type of person that pays your car insurance in advance, say you pay 3-4 months in advance, then those are assets as well. So, yes, that is a very good question. The question was, if we need to find the amount for one side, do you just subtract the other two numbers? That is exactly correct. If you know your assets and you know your liabilities, you can take your assets minus your liabilities. That's going to get you your owner's equity. If you know your liabilities and owner's equity, since they're on the same side of the equation, you're actually going to add those two together. See if I can get this to be legible. So you have your assets, liabilities, plus owner's equity. If you know assets and liabilities, you would subtract to find out your owner's equity. If you know assets and owner's equity, you would subtract to find liabilities. But since these two are on the same side of the equation, you would add those two amounts together to find out your assets. Does that answer your question and make sense? Okay. So again, assets are things the business already owns. Liabilities are something our business owns to another person. So if you purchase something on account and you promise to pay the other business $100 in a month, that is a liability. So basically liabilities are loans that you've taken out at the bank. They are so accounts receivable. So it's kind of like credit cards with the company. So you have an agreement with, so you're, see, I'm trying to think of a common car dealership. So let's say you're a Chevy dealership and you purchase supplies directly from Chevy and they allow you to take the product but pay them in a month or two. That's a liability. You have the material, but you haven't paid for them yet. So credit cards, um, loans with the bank, loans with other companies. If you have store credit cards with a specific company, all those are liabilities. Owner's equity has to do specifically with the owner. So we have capital, which is where the owner invests money into a business. So most of the problems we work with, it's going to start out with so and so owner invested $10,000 in the company. That $10,000 is capital. When the owner takes money out of the company for personal use, that is owner's equity account. So some businesses, when they first start out, the owners do not give themselves a salary. The owner essentially just takes out money for personal use. Maybe they need gas on their own car, or they need to pay an electric bill at their own house. They'll take the money out of the company's account to use for themselves. That's an owner's equity. When a customer when the owner or when the company provides a service, when they earn money from their customers, that's owner's equity. It's essentially the revenue, how much they're bringing in from the services they provide. Lastly is expenses. Telephone expense, gas expense, trash expense, wages. Those are all a type of owner's equity, but they're classed as an expense. So you'll see if when you start your problem, on your homework, if you haven't started it yet, 2-9 has expenses. They're listed with owner's equity accounts, but they are technically expenses. They're money the company has to pay out to be able to continue to operate. So are there any questions on the difference between the assets, liabilities, and owner's equity? Okay. 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 My computer is deciding not to cooperate very well today. There we go. Okay, this is what we've already talked about. The standard formula is your assets plus liabilities. So as long as you know two, you can always figure out the third. So that is straight. We've already covered this, so I'm not going to hit it again. analyzing transactions, as I mentioned, we're using the double entry method, so everything is going to be used twice. On some of the assignments that I've already graded for week 2, amounts were only used once, or they were used 3 times, but it was the same amount 3 times. We use each amount will have to affect at least 2 accounts. So you can have a debit and a credit, or a debit and 2 credits, or 2 debits and a credit based on what your transaction is given. If it says that you purchased a car for $10,000 with $5,000 cash and $5,000 credit, you actually have to make sure your account, your transaction stays in balance. So you have $5,000. Oh, my handwriting was atrocious on this thing. So you have $5,000 that you paid in cash. You got a vehicle for $10,000. So those leave you a $5,000 balance. But you put over here, you put $5,000 on credit. So the 10,000 minus 5,000 is 5,000, and then you have 5,000 in a liability. So that transaction balances. So that's when you know you're on the right track. So does that transaction make sense? Okay. Okay. In the chat box, what is the correct way to write the accounting equation? This It is actually E. As long as you know 2 of the amounts, you can always figure out the third. So yes, C is the standard way that we write the equation, but it can be written in any of an A, B, or C. So the standard is C, but it's not the only way. So I know that one's a little tricky because you always, whenever you say what's the correct way, you automatically assume you're looking for the standard way, but that's not the case. There is a question like this on your conference assignment. Give you a heads up there. So I know people have to leave soon, so I want to get to a couple of the examples. So the first one is Adams invested cash by making a deposit in a bank account for the business. So what 2 accounts are we going to use? Is it going to be accounts receivable in cash, cash and capital, accounts receivable and accounts payable, or cash and accounts payable? So in the chat box, how are we going to record this transaction? If you don't know, that's fine too. Okay, so we invested cash. So that's one account. So that cuts out 2 of our choices. And then since it does not specifically say the owner, we're going to assume that Adams is the owner. So it is going to be cash and capital. Most of the transactions you come across, it's going to say John Adams, the owner, or the owner took out. So it's going to give you more information than just the name of the individual. So that's going to help when it comes to those types of transactions. You paid rent in July for 150. So what two accounts are we going to use when we paid rent? Good job. Since it does not say on account, we're going to assume it is cash. And whenever we pay rent, mortgage, employees, it's always going to be what we paid plus the word expense. So if we paid our telephone bill, it's going to be telephone expense. So that's just a easy way to remember if it's an expense. Any questions on either of the first two transactions? This is where some confusion usually starts to kick in. Okay, we purchased tools on account from Clean Tools for $600. What two accounts are we going to use? Okay, this is where the confusion usually comes in because I gave you accounts payable and accounts receivable. So we purchased tools, so we are definitely using tools. But since it says on account and we purchased the tools, it is going to be accounts payable. Accounts payable is when our company purchases items from another company. Accounts receivable is when our customers purchase items from us. So since we purchased the tools, it's going to be accounts payable. So it's going to be B. Does that make sense why it's not accounts receivable? Okay. A lot of times that's going to be the differential when you choose accounts payable or accounts receivable is who actually purchased the item. So, okay, this one is similar to the rent. We paid, sorry about that. Just a minute, let me mute my mic for a minute. Crazy dog alert. Sorry about that. So this one is similar. So yeah, we're paying our employee. So basically, it is going to be wages, expense, and cash. We paid our assistant, so we paid him wages, and then we're going to pay him in cash. We're not going to say, oh, we'll pay you in a month. So the work you do now, you get paid in a month. You're not going to be left with employees if you do that. So, okay, financial statements. We are nearing the end and we are right on time. So the three statements again that we're mainly going to work with is the income statement, the statement of owner's equity, and the balance sheet. This is the order that these statements have to be completed. They have to be completed in this order or your amounts will be off. So page 33 in your textbook gives you great examples of what goes on each of these forms and the formatting that you need to use for it. So here is the income statement. I just took these images right out of your textbook. So you're going to have your revenue accounts. Sometimes it may be more than one, such as week 11, but most of the time it's just going to be one revenue account. So you're going to list how much the company earned by providing its services or products. So that in this case, they earned $2,150. Then you're going to list the expenses, each one separately. And you're going to list the amount for the month or the period. Most cases, the financial statements are compiled for 1 month at a time. Some of the examples in your homework is for a 3 month period. So that varies by company. There is no one standard amount of time for an accounting period. So you're going to list the expenses. You're going to add the expenses up, subtract it from the revenue. So you're going to subtract from the revenue. That's going to give you your net income or net loss. In this class, we will deal with both net incomes and net losses. Are there any questions on the income statement? Right now, I'm guessing it's going to be pretty straightforward. Okay, we're going to take the $1,250 and that is going to go on our statement of owner's equity. Trying to make sure I can still see questions. So we're going to list the capital at the beginning of the month. For the most time, for most of our homework, it's always going to be 0 for the amount of money for the amount of money the business has at the beginning of the period. So that's going to be 0. Then you're going to enter in the investment. How much capital did the owner put into the account? If we go back to the transaction, we had example 1 where Adams invested 8,000, we would put 8,000 instead of the 2,000. So then you would add the two amounts up. That's going to give you the total investment. Here is where you have your net income or net loss. And then the $150 is the amount that the owner took out for personal use. So for the month of June, the owner only took out $150. Subtract those two amounts. So you're going to subtract. That's going to give you the increase in capital. Then you're going to add the two blue boxes together. I'm sorry, you're going to add the 2,000 and the 1,000. And that is going to give you, that's a horrible plus sign. That's going to give you your capital for the month. And this amount we actually need on our balance sheet. So are there any questions on the statement of owner's equity? Again, page 33 in your textbook gives you great examples. Okay. The last is the balance sheet. This is where we list all of our assets. This is basically the information that we haven't used yet. So the balance sheet is pretty much the catch-all. So we're listing our assets, what the company owns, your accounts payable, how much does the company owe to other businesses, and how much has the company made this period. So there's the amount from the statement of owner's equity. Now, here is where I have seen a lot of students mess up, and I've graded a couple this quarter already where this amount does not equal this amount. Those two amounts have to be the same. If they are not the same, something is wrong. So you have to make sure. If you get to this point and your numbers don't match and you can't find it, send me the email. I'm more than happy to look at it for you. So just if it doesn't, you can either go back through, have somebody else go back through your numbers, or the easiest and probably the quickest, email me the file, ask me to look at it, and say, okay, I'm off here. Can you figure out where I went wrong? I will do that the entire quarter if need be. So make sure you ask for help. Are there any questions on the balance sheet? Okay, so we are almost done. Okay, the last thing is the wrap up. So again, office hours are Wednesdays from 2 to 4 if you're in section 1, Tuesdays 2 to 4 for section 3. If you need to meet and you can't meet during those times, let me know and we can work something out between our schedules. Next week's homework seems rather long. 13 is a little tricky because you're dealing with a lot more T accounts and a lot more transactions than you're used to. So make sure you give yourself plenty of time. You do have next week's mastery problem, a discussion, and next week is your first exam. The review sheet has already been posted within the module, so you already have access to it, and so you can start reviewing or start getting ready to review whenever you want. Are there any questions over anything? And if you do not feel comfortable discussing questions here, you can always email me questions later. Okay, if there are no questions, that is really all I had. So so it's really we're done. So if you don't have any questions, have an enjoyable evening. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I know unfortunately some of you guys are probably doing homework today, but that's it. And I will get you guys the passcode for the conference assignment before I'm done today. You are more than welcome. You guys are more than welcome.